Okay. Any questions out there from what we've covered so far? Any others before I move on? No, we're good? All right. So speaking of that, since we hit on Stuxnet, since you brought it up, let's talk about some security issues here with that. When it comes, that was one of the main concerns early on with moving towards an Ethernet-based network, was the security issues it would bring up. How are you handling that? How are you addressing those? Has it been a simple matter of applying the firewalls and the zones and what have segmentations, or what are you finding?
In our applications, we're having to put a dedicated server in that the IT people can manage, and that's the gateway into their network. They want control. They want to manage the Windows updates and their firewall, so we have to provide a gateway that's their responsibility, and then we have the rest of it, shall we say, the level 1 control at the machine level. That's been the only method that our clients have been willing to accept. They have, the IT people are managing the security on that, and let's face it, that's their job. They're responsible for the network. They're current on all the viruses and all the attacks. Quite frankly, I would rather they have that responsibility than me, because I'm not a security expert. So it's really better to give them a server and let them manage it.
Yeah.
Physically isolating the networks helps, and also good firewall devices.
I think the last piece of that is discipline, is trying to make sure the people that use the network for programming and storage of their software, that they actually keep their own systems up to date and with a good antivirus, and not do silly things with it. Keep our USB memory sticks usage down to a minimum, keep them off our networks as much as possible, and just have a good disciplinary practices amongst our programs.
Yeah, and as far as the machine level, those networks, we keep those separate. Any external access would be through a firewall. Our external access, which is, we don't get it too often, we either go through the IT firewalls, or we put in a modem. Siemens has a good product. Basically we're a VPN tunnel in, so, but IT has to, we all have to agree that, that's going to give everybody the security level they need. But on the floor level, PLCs, and it's got to be dedicated networks, and that's where the respect from the IT people have to be, that has to grow, because they have to stay out of the real-time environment.
What I'm seeing a lot of right now is vending machines on the plant floor to dispense tooling and safety equipment, gloves and safety glasses, so that the operators can get the devices, the components they need to do their jobs without bothering a foreman. It allows people, the plant, to keep track of their supplies better. This is all managed by vendors. These vending machines have to automatically report back to the vendor so they can be refilled. In almost every installation that I see of those vending machines, they're on a cellular modem, because the IT department doesn't want to have anything to do with them. So we still have this barrier of, I don't want anybody else's devices on my network.
It's all separate that way. Huh?
It's interesting, because when you work in automotive or heavy industries, they have a lot of talent on the plant floor. We do a lot of work in distribution centers also, like the Men's Warehouse, Ross Stores, and they can't spell PLC. I mean, they just, they never get into it. So we need that remote access, and we use a lot of VPN, all that kind of good stuff to make sure that we can securely get in and work with their IT departments.
Okay. Any questions on that? One question I had, oh, there's one.
So with these Ethernet-enabled devices, and comes the security risk, and security's built into a lot of products these days. And one of the things I'm struggling with is, how do you evaluate that an exploit is a problem for you and you need to upgrade the firmware? Because we try to avoid upgrading the firmware. It may change, how our machines work. So what do you do about firmware upgrades on like PLCs or drives for security?
Carefully plan.
Yeah, we tend to not do anything like that remotely. There's been too many issues in the past with remote control. Something goes wrong and you shut a line down. I had a customer just go through that the other week. The engineer was remoting into a server, but he thought he was on server A, but he was really on server B, rebooted the server, shut the line down, took an hour and a half to reboot the server. So we do those on site. There's a bit more cost, but we can recover from it more quickly. So firmware upgrades over the internet would scare me to death.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. When we're remoting in, like these places where they can't spell PLC, it's mainly for, okay, we need to troubleshoot, this isn't working, so it's definitely not doing upgrades.
Yeah, I go back to the planning. That really has to be something that is looked at. And a lot of the hardware has different hardware levels. So just by putting in a new piece of firmware, it may not work for that particular device, and you're in for some big trouble. It's planning, and we do it on the floor level right now.
A lot of firmware isn't even updatable over the Ethernet connection anyway. It's still usually a serial or a USB connection.
Yeah, I agree with everybody here. We do the same with when we upgrade drives and stuff, our test stands. It's usually a technician. But we try to test that upgrade in-house first in our lab before we send them around the world to do that.
Okay. Just a quick aside on the question of the issue of upgrades, and you brought up the issue of moving from Windows 7 from Windows XP, which is pretty much ubiquitous in industrial applications. There's been lots of discussions in the past few months about that, the coming deadline. Is that really an issue that you're seeing, or has that been largely self-managed? Because I didn't hear much about it until the past few months. And it's definitely not a Y2K issue, but I saw a lot of back and forth, so I was just interested to hear what your perspective was on that, if there's that much to say about it.
Industrial customers are very different than the average computer user. They really don't care about the technology at the plant level for the most part, so long as it works and it's reliable. And they're very conservative. They don't want to upgrade to the latest and greatest. They just want their machines to work and be reliable. So the market, the tools that we're using are driving the necessary upgrades, but most customers wouldn't upgrade if they didn't have to. I mean, I've still got machines out there that are running under Windows 2K and Windows 98, and Windows NT.
Even without the support, they're still
correct.
running.
I mean, that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. We've embraced Microsoft on our PC required applications, and it's I'm just going to say painful, moving from one platform to another. Software and also, the hardware is try to make it common across the board. But we use the embedded products, which allows us to have the write protect feature. So, if you turn the system off and turn it back on, it basically has a fresh boot. Because if somebody walks in with a jump drive, or some IT guy wants to put a new virus update or some kind of software on it, it causes us real problems when we're trying to achieve as real-time an environment as possible.
Okay. We have a question? Okay.
This is Gopal Hegde from Duke Energy. Has anybody on the panel has experience of using Profibus on protective relaying applications?
Motor protective relays, generator protective relays, multi-lin sort of thing?
Yes, sir.
I haven't specifically with those relays. Profibus is a very straightforward network to implement. For those applications, they've traditionally been an RS-485 Modbus network. That was what was usually available on the multi-lens. I can't say I had any experience with it, but it wouldn't scare me to do that sort of thing.
Okay.
Did you mean Profibus or Profinet? Yeah, depending on the manufacturer of the relay. I mean,
yeah, because not many people are offering. Most of them are like SCL or Multilin or Siemens. You know, so most of them, I guess, Modbus or like RS-232 is the way. But now, if you're talking about this Profinet on VFDs and PLCs and so forth, still there is an interface issue with the protective relaying to the process in a situation to turn the power off. So how do you do that marriage? Or is there something else?
I think you got to go back to the manufacturer and get their device to be, Profinet compliant. It starts with the manufacturer.
I mean, there are gateways available too. There's Profinet to Modbus gateways available that might be a good choice as well.
Okay. So what about wireless? Mike mentioned that Ford's looking at doing more and more with that. What are you hearing? Now that Ethernet's pretty much firmly in place, that enables wireless more and more. What is your experience with that? Are customers wanting that? I know originally it was just to go where wires couldn't go. That was the initial use, but it seems to be expanding beyond that. What's your experience with that?
You got some in the old factory. You got some big hunk in an HMI panel that's 40 feet away, and you're yelling down to the electrician, "All right, hit that limit switch. Is that switch?" And our guys love it. They use the wireless, take their laptops right down there, look in the logic, see exactly what's happening. Chris was talking about the NMIs. I mean, I think the big hunk in HMIs sitting in the panel is going to be a dinosaur in the past.
We use an iPad that there's a Simplicity app that will go into the run on the iPad, so we can use our wireless network and reflect the Simplicity HMI screens on the iPad. Makes the development rather quick. But we're at this time only using wireless for troubleshooting and diagnostics. We've done no control over it. I'm sure it can be done. We've got no experience with it.
Okay. Yeah, we embraced wireless. I mean, and it's shown to us that it's anything you can, I don't want to say this because I never would have said it about 10 years ago, but I think you can, anything you do on a wired network, you can pretty much do on a wireless. We're, with Profinet, with the layers on top of it, we do have the real-time stability and utilizing multiple access points with rapid roaming. We found the Siemens products are able to allow us to move clients, past access points and within less than 50 milliseconds, we're able to make sure we don't lose any integrity there. I mean, I've still got wire at home. I believe in it, but well, and wireless, but yeah, I think it's here to stay, and look out because I saw the presentation with CNET. We're looking at mobile devices, and the big question is how do you bring those into the safety environment? But I think that's down the road a little bit. But for diagnostic purposes and everything, it's a powerful tool, and everybody's got the device. So that's the direction. But as far as deterministic on the floor I/O, it's capable. With the Siemens products that we're using with the Profinet, PLCs to PLCs, and we do a lot of distributed architecture, and it works, and we're real excited about it.
Any questions about wireless? No? Okay. So there's been some recent survey indications citing use of industrial Ethernet specifically for productivity improvements. With your experience around Profinet, are there some of that? I know some of this was cited in some of the presentations, but can you point to some specific productivity improvements that you could point directly to the use of Ethernet and Profinet in particular?
Well, as I've said several times, network commissioning is very quick. So our productivity has been improved because we can get a network running very quickly. We can diagnose it very quickly. From a tons per hour or throughput of the machine rate, I can't see any impact of Profinet versus other networks. But from a troubleshooting standpoint and from just a maintenance standpoint, it's superior to anything we've used.
And being a guy who used to work for one of the big three, downtime is going to cost you a lot of money. So when the machine goes down with the diagnostics built on board, it is so much easier to troubleshoot and it reduces your downtime. So.
There's an inherent cost to eliminating networks in design also. We see a savings there in engineering where I'm only specializing in one network and my drawing packages become much simpler and smaller. So there is a savings there also.
Yeah, I agree with all the above. It's commissioning is, we save a lot of costs there. Downtime is huge. Can't even put a number on that. Well, I guess you could. I've heard them. But in reducing components, and right now, obviously, a lot of manufacturers or vendors, since it is open source, a lot of people are moving to Profinet, and a lot of the components, they're not there yet, but they're coming, and I've seen a lot of the prices reduced. But distributed architecture with the ability to just plug in different devices, it's good, and it's a lot of cost savings.
Yeah. If I can add to that, one thing I see a lot is maintenance people, instead of stepping back and trying to troubleshoot a problem, start throwing parts at it and trying to replace things. The auto configuration utility that's in the Profi network allows you to change a node out and do no programming, so people can start swapping parts without much thought behind it and try to resolve a problem that way, even if they don't pay attention to the diagnostics and say node 7 is broke. They can just start swapping parts and the configuration will remain intact. So that would be a big productivity improvement from a troubleshooting standpoint.
So, speaking of that, Peter, you mentioned more devices moving towards Profinet that you're seeing. All of you out there, you have a choice for that. Why Profinet? I mean, there's so many different flavors. Why particularly did you choose to work with Profinet?
Well, myself, I'm a big GE supporter. They adopted Profinet. We had a large comfort level with Profibus because we do a lot of drive control, so we need very deterministic communication. It was just a natural progression for us. I have more confidence in that than other Ethernet technologies that are available from other vendors, and we like that it's very open in its standards. So that when we evaluated, do we really, if we're going to go Ethernet, which network are we going to go with? Profinet won hands down.
I think the deterministic nature of Profinet and the fact that you can set up the 3 different communications in there with RT, IRT, and then the what would be more used for the MES layer.
Okay.
I agree with Dave and Sam. The difference is my business is very Siemens based. So Siemens gave us the Profinet response, and our history has been dealing with so many different customers and having such a wide variety of networks to deal with. And every one of them having their own issues. What we found is Profinet has just been what we've been looking for. I don't have to put a wire in. It just, all the problems we used to have are gone. I don't see the hardware issues. I don't see the training of electricians and retraining them every time we pull a different network up. So
we use them all. And as far as industrial Ethernet, whether it's in Modbus, TCP, EtherIP, Profinet, a lot of it is customer driven for us in our product lines because of the plant floor, the tool stores, the maintenance, the training. But when we looked at our AGV products, we chose Profinet with Siemens because of the deterministic capabilities, the ability to predictably get rapid roaming, and the component selection. You know, the PLCs in that regard were small because we have to, everything has to be compact, and everything's open architecture, and there's, you know, I see the trend, there's the people that we're buying equipment from, you know, have the Profinet components selections, and then on our end, the other layer of ProfiSafe was just a real added benefit for us that we see as very robust.
Okay. So are there any questions out there? Any other ones out there? Any final questions for the panel? No? All right. Well, I'd like to thank Peter and David and Sam and the other Dave. There's lots of Sam and Daves up here. Can you? Yeah. So thank you all, and I will turn things back over to Mike. Thank you.